Hello and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday the 27th of October 2021, coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC.
Hello.
And me, David G7URP. Good to see you. On tonight's show, Joe Chester M1MWD shows us how to make a small station fun. We get to see some of the airsoft action of Nigel's charity fundraising earlier this month. And we find out what on earth is this. Now, we've had a real mix of answers to this week. If you think you know what that is and you haven't already emailed us, then you can drop a message either on BATC or on Facebook and tell us what you think it is, and we'll read it out with all the other answers in a little while. Look at that. That's a weird thing, isn't it?
It is a weird thing.
But first, Nigel 2E0NLK, you may remember, was taking part in a charity event to raise money all for Combat to Coffee, which was formed to support outlets for armed force veterans who may be struggling with life outside the service. So a very worthy cause, and one of the things that Nigel loves is a thing called airsoft, and I must admit that was a new name for me at least. So anyway, he got some video shot at the event. We couldn't really show all 15 minutes of it, but we've cut it down a bit, edited it down, and this is what happened.
Got a 40 mic.
We're trying to go around this side.
Mind that right hand side. Stand the side there.
There we go. That's a bit of a taste of the action that I can see why it's appealing. I can also see why nobody volunteered to video it, because I'm not sure I would have done, to be honest. We were busy that day, we really were. But anyway, well done to Nigel. He just put this little note to accompany that. If you're into these sort of things, I'm sure it'll mean more to you than me. It says, sorry for the bad camera footage, but only the place we could fit a camera at the last minute was the rifle. At the start, which was a VSR with a 3x9 scope, and the other one that he was using was a 1:1 scale of the L85A2, and the pistol is a WE18C Glock. Hope you enjoy. I was taken aback by the grenades, and anyway, looked great fun. The most important thing, I guess, apart from everybody who did it had fun, was that they raised over £1,000 for Combat to Coffee. So that's a wonderful event. Thank you very much for sending us that video, Nigel. Thanks for editing it as well, down Tammy, earlier on. Now we've heard from Mike G4DYC. He's actually put quite a nice long piece about something called the exercise Blue Ham, which was last weekend. Anyway, I'll read this part of it to you, and the rest of it you'll find on our newsletter. So he said, as mentioned in the club contest news by Phil G4LPP, I was pleased to take part as and when in the recent exercise Blue Ham on the 16th and 17th of October. I've participated in several of these events over recent years, and they are normally held twice a year and are advertised in GB2RS News, etc. These are joint exercises between cadet stations and amateur operators on the 5 meg shared band. It's a contest and exercise for the cadets, and many amateurs also treat it as a contest. Some also go out to operate portable, etc. There's a website of participants, etc. during the event, and amateurs must hold a full licence to participate on this band. Most of the exercise Blue Ham is on SSB, voice, but some cadets operate on PSK 31 and Olivia, but not so much. There are participation certificates for amateurs who've stipulated minimum number of contacts. Restrictions allow, and the cadets will take part. The exercise provide the cadets with comms practice, and there's generally a wide range of ability. Many are very efficient operators, and some may go on to take an interest in amateur radio. And he also mentions that there are other, not just the RAF, but the Army Cadet Force, the Sea Cadet Corps, and the Combined Cadet Force also take part. Well, Phil's contest newsletter this weekend will include all the details there, but you can see some of it. That web address on there is really worth looking at if you're interested in that when they're next doing them, because it's a great way to get involved and encourage young people to look at amateur radio. Now the next one, by the way, Tammy's suffering a little bit with a cold this week. In fact, it's nice that you've got your almost full voice back today. You didn't have one a couple of days ago.
Yep.
But anyway, would you look away now? Wives and partners, and maybe husbands and partners, will you look away now if you're not interested in amateur radio and you don't like the amount of money that your other half spends on radio gear? Because this is something I saw on
look
one
away,
of the
did you
Facebook
say?
groups. Yeah, you have a look away, Tammy, but just press that button, please. This is something you may have seen yourself. It's on Amateur Radio UK's Facebook page. It says, in case you can't read it at home, please hide this package and do not ring the doorbell, because this package contains radio parts that I was not supposed to buy but could not say no to. Please help me by hiding this behind the recycling bin by the side gate. If not, you will be an accomplice when I am murdered. It's a bit extreme, isn't it?
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess you could ask your favourite radio supplier to put that on a parcel, but I thought that was quite fun. Now we've got a message and a plea really for somebody who's just starting out in the hobby. Her name is Cassie, and they've put a message on our website, but I thought I'd read it to you here. I'm in the middle of studying for my foundation licence at the moment. I live near Holt and I'm a 61-year-old biker. I have a keen interest in ham radio and CB, and I've acquired a Yaesu FT450D wideband and buying the M0 CVO Magtenna any day now, so that I can learn whilst I hopefully pass the exam and get assigned a call sign. I live in a bungalow and space is limited, so my antenna will have to be going in the loft. I have a volunteer. I need a volunteer. They have a volunteer to go in the loft, but neither she or I have a clue of how to fix the aerial up. Any advice greatly appreciated, and I'd be pleased to meet you. So if you can help with some advice for Cassie, who's just getting started and wants advice about how they mount one of those antennas. I'm not sure about the Magtenna is. I guess it's with the mag word in it. Maybe it has got a magnetic base. So just as a thought.
Maybe.
Oh, loop. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's true. It could be a loop. Then if you can help Cassie, I've got the email address, and if you drop us a line to radio@dcpmicro.com, I'll put you in touch with Cassie, especially if you're in that sort of area. Although I guess you could do this sort of help maybe over the phone as well, or over Zoom or something like that. So thanks, Cassie, and good luck, and welcome to the hobby for when you take your exam shortly. Finally, just like to tell you that this Monday, Tammy and I are hosting one of the RSGB webinars called Tonight at 8. And this Monday will interest you particularly if you like construction or you're interested in a low-cost transceiver, because BitX is quite well known, and this webinar is about BitX to SBitX, the journey and development of this exciting and affordable range of transceivers, by Ashar Farhan VU2 ESE. Now this is, their transceivers are just under, or just over, sorry, $200. So it's about 150, 160 pounds. They do several bands on most of the HF bands, and it's an SSB as well. So it's a pretty cheap way of doing it. And if you fancy making something, I think the circuit boards are partly assembled, but it gives you the case and all the other bits as well. And certainly for about 150 or 160 pounds, they've got a colour screen and everything else. Should be interesting anyway. I don't know much more than that, but that's the whole point of the webinar. That's this Monday night at 8 o'clock. For details, look at rsgb.org/webinars. Right, now, now we're going to show you a little bit now. Did you see NARC Live last week?
I did.
You did? Well, you were here.
Exactly.
Anyway, we did do a sort of what I like to think is a cameo, really, because we featured a cable tie gun, which was the answer to the what on earth is this. But Tammy and I did a little sort of cameo. Shall we remind ourselves of what that was like? Let's have a look at last week's show.
It's like a time hop back in time.
It is. Let's have a look. So.
What do you reckon it is?
I don't know. Can we come back to us, though? Because I happen to have one of these as well. It isn't quite the same one as the one on there.
No.
Okay. And if I did this, given the current trend for a certain film out there at the moment, I said this, and I said something like this to you. I'm James Bond, remember?
Oh, you're Bond.
Okay, I'm Bond,
oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Palmer, I expect you to tie.
To tie? You get, see? Have you seen the film? If you know what? No. Anyway.
Oh, look, we're almost in the same position.
We are almost in the same position. I've got a slightly different shirt on this week. Anyway, that's what we did. A bit of fun. But I must admit, well, as you know, the James Bond films are produced in the UK. And they're produced by a UK production company. That's what you know the name of the company.
Broccoli.
Well, Broccoli's one of the producers, I think, of it. Anyway, I think they're well, I sent an email and sent that little video clip to them. They're called Eon Productions. And I can't wait to do this because in my special drawer that nobody can see that Tammy worries about when I open it, I've actually had a letter.
Lock on that.
I've had a letter from them. No, don't laugh. Look, it's come from Eon, and it must be about the position I applied for. So I'm gonna. This is literally the real letter. I'm gonna open it now, and let's just see if we've got the job. Oh, no. Our direct debit's going up 15 quid next month.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Let's move on. Little people, Tammy.
Oh, dear. Right, the little people this week is a little bit scary. Okay, so here we go.
Could it be because of the 31st? Oh.
No, it's because it's a chainsaw.
Right, okay.
So it did worry me a little bit when I saw that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't talk very well.
It's all right.
But I thought it was quite clever. It's a
just
sushi,
sort of,
you know,
of
one
course
of those
it's Japanese,
sushi
isn't it?
things
Yes.
that goes round and round.
Yeah, we have to remember, of course, this website, miniature-calendar.com, is Japanese, isn't it?
Yeah, I have to,
So-
at this point, I've got to give my nanny a name check because
Why?
she said to me one week, she said, what do you do with all those little people when you've done that every week? I said, well, I don't make that. She said, don't you? I said, no. I said, there's a website and they do one every day.
Oh.
She thought I made them. So
Oh,
perhaps I
bless you.
should have made her think I did because she obviously thought they were good.
Well, bless you, Nanny Edna, in North Walsham. Look at that, though. That's lovely, isn't it? Fantastic. And, yes. You still do see those around this country, don't you?
Yeah.
That
Yo
sort of-
Sushi or something
Yo
like that.
Sushi, yeah, that's right. Thank you for that. Miniature-calendar.com, and you can see all that sort of thing on there every week. So, thanks for keeping in touch this week, telling us what you're doing, sending us videos, pictures and all that sort of thing. But do keep in touch. You can send us any messages or anything for the show by 3 o'clock at the latest, please, on a Wednesday. Here's the address now, radio@dcpmicro.com. And we'll include it in that show or one very shortly after. It depends how much material we have and everything for that evening and how busy we are, really. And also, of course, our card, which, again, we're very happy to send to absolutely anybody. We sent one this week to somebody who's in a different club, but actually in Suffolk, and we sent it to them they're not very well in hospital at the moment. Someone sent us a message and said, please can you send a card? So we're very happy to send this. Please just drop us a line again to that address with their name and address, and we'll add your name to ours and send them the card. We're very happy to do that.
Yep.
Okay, so it's round to that moment where we look back at that picture from last week and say, what on earth is this? So let's have a look. Okay, now.
We have had a few online.
We have, so well, we'll read some of the ones that we've had by emails
first.
and then we will include the ones online. So no more entries now, entries closed. So from Kevin M0UJD, he was quick out of the fence. I think that night he said, I'm guessing it's a CCTV can and then a conker on it to scare away spiders as they don't like them. Kev M0KKM says the latest object could be a CCTV camera with an anti-spider conker fitted, or as it's that time of year, it could be a child snatcher's latest trap. It's a bit gory, isn't it? I'm going to read these all because Tammy's voice isn't great tonight. Rest, give you a rest. Tony M0TDK says this week's mystery object is one of the following. Now listen carefully. An automatic squirrel roaster. This is how it works. No, don't laugh. This is it. Lured by the conker, a squirrel leaps across it and is cooked in midair by the infrared light to which the conker is attached. Or is it B, a monument to William the Conqueror, made deliberately unobtrusive so as to avoid an opprobrium, oh, that's a word I don't often use, of the woke and witless who stalk our land? Or is it C, a conker strapped to a lamp which is attached to a rusty pole?
I suppose technically that is actually right.
Yeah, absolutely. Say it as it is. Thank you, Tony. Ken GM4JMU says, I guess it's a conker adapter for a clay pigeon projector. Dave G0ELJ says that it looks like a conker zip tie to whatever the white thing is. I don't think we can give any points for that, really. But my wife puts conkers in the corners of the bedroom to keep spiders away. So maybe in the picture it's to stop the item being infested with spiders' webs. Mark G0GJ says, hi, it's a conker so spiders do not sit on the camera. And Pete G0FVG says, hi both, it's a horse chestnut on a camera held down by a cable tie. Simon M0SIH says, is a conker attached to a CCTV camera by a cable tie? The conker is thought to deter spiders from making webs in front of the lens and obscuring the image. Nick M0HGU says, well, there's one. It's a conker to ward off spiders from a CCTV, but I don't think they work. And he uses a thing called deathlack. Yes, I think that's what it's called. It seems to work. Deathlack. Sounds horrific.
Never heard of it.
But the most comprehensive answer that we've had, apart from the ones we're going to read out online. Well, actually, let's read the ones out online now because I want to leave this other one for last.
Okay. We've got Sunny M0SYW says, the what on earth is it? It's an attempt to keep spiders off the lens of a camera. And then
we've got another one down here.
Yep.
Mike Mobbs says it's a conker, David. Well, that's only definitely half a point there. What about the other bit? Becky Jennings says, is it a camera case with an anti-spider conker on it?
Yep.
Or call sign M0XXR. Yep. And Paul says, yes, a conker is to attract deer as they are the only animals that can't eat them.
Can eat them.
That can eat them.
All right.
Oh, can eat them. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Maybe.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
And
oh, no, that's
the other
just
one was
talking
about the antenna. That was a Magitenna. We'll talk about that in a moment then.
Yeah.
And finally then this. Now this came in today, just before the deadline, from Stuart G7KBF. There's two answers for last week's What on Earth, he says. It's an anti-spider deterrent first introduced to England by the Romans back in the 1st century AD. The seed of the horse chestnut is attached to whatever you desire to protect from spiders. In this case, it looks like a CCTV camera. Of course, these did not exist in Roman times, and neither did tie wraps. In Roman times, cord or thread would have been used and would have been required frequent replacing. They didn't have CCTV then, did they? The photograph shows no more than a modern equivalent of the Roman method. The comments attributed to Julius Caesar substantiate the information given above, namely by the ecclesiastical Latin Venae Vide Visi, known in English as I came, I saw, I conquered.
Love it.
It's quite good, that, isn't it? The CCTV unit is merely conquered to repel spiders, thereby stopping webs being created affecting the quality of the picture. I rest my case. Or is it number 2, which is an automatic washing system for the housing of the CCTV camera? because horse chestnuts contain a product called saponins. This is a soap-like chemical that is sometimes added to shampoos and shower gels. It's thought that the Vikings, who were apparently surprisingly clean, made their soap out of soaked, crushed-up conkers. So if a horse chestnut is placed on whatever you require to be kept clean when it rains, the item is automatically washed. If the conker is not crushed, the cleaning ability will last longer as the saponin seeps out gradually. Evidence for the above is via Norwich City Council, who controversially proposed to cut down horse chestnut trees in 2001 due to the slippery, soapy froth on the highway in Bluebell Road originating from those trees when the conkers were crushed by moving vehicles.
I think Stuart has.
I think we have to give him, if we had a prize, which we don't.
The prize for the most.
That's right.
So we've had a history lesson and a science lesson.
It is amazing, isn't it? It is really good. Yeah. Thank you to all of you, though, for your ingenious and imaginative and fun entries. And of course, the answer is to stop spiders' webs going off the security camera. And it was from James, M0UKS. You may remember you saw his programme a month or so ago, all about the CCTV cameras around his garden. But the trouble is,
I'm not sure it's working.
He sent us this picture. I just said, can you show a picture of it working? So he sent this, but as you can see, there are a few spiders' webs creeping in from the top. So I guess the answer is to put the conker in front of the camera, and then maybe they won't go there.
Maybe.
Anyway, thank you very much, James, for that picture, and well done again to all of you for the wonderful entries we've had that made us chuckle earlier in the week. So let's have a look at this week's object when we ask you, what on earth is this? I'm not going to say anything. I think...
Can I say what I think it looks like?
Yeah.
It's a bird's head, which is open, waiting for food.
Yes, like a gull's head.
Yeah.
Funny enough, when I first saw it, I actually thought dolphin. I think it's because where I was looking at it on my screen, I couldn't see all of it, so that I was looking at the top right-hand side of it.
It could also look a little bit like either a submarine or a spaceship from the other side. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it is. We can tell you it's none of those things.
Oh, really? Oh, that's sad.
So if you know what that is, and it's what, can we give it any clue? Just say it's ingenious. I'm going to say it's ingenious. That's all. Tell us what you think that is called or what it does, and send it to your answers to radio@dcpmicro.com by 3 o'clock next Wednesday at the latest, please. And we will reveal next Wednesday night what that is. Before we meet our guest tonight, let's just have a look at what's happening next week on Norfolk Amateur Radio Club. So on Sunday at 7 o'clock, it's the GB Tourist News on GB3MB repeater. On Monday, the 1st of November, it's Monday Night Net at 7:30 with Tim, M1MWD. And at 8:30, it's the 80-metre CW net on 3.543 megahertz. Next Wednesday, at the 3rd of November, here on NARC Live, it's a great evening if you like making stuff, or particularly if you like the higher frequencies, because we've got Phil, G4LPP, our very own member, who's coming on to tell us how you can have lots of fun with homebrew linears for 6, 4, 2 metres and 70 sems. And he shows us how he's made loads of them as well. So that's next week on NARC Live here at 7:30 next week. Plus all the regulars, all your stories and pictures, please get them to us. It's lovely to share them. Hopefully it makes people smile and keeps us all connected and keeps us all in touch as well. And don't forget that card as well that we can send. Now at this point, I should be introducing our guest, but he's got me a bit worried.
He's not there.
And he's not there, basically. So, Joe, I'll shout it out. Joe is coming on with his cup of tea. Let's meet the man himself. Joe Chester M1MWD. We can see you with your cup of tea and sitting down. Hello, Joe.
How are you?
I'm all right now. We were stringing that out a bit because we thought.
Yeah, I gave it a. I was watching really, for music fans, I was listening to a really hot jazz quartet playing live in Rio tonight.
What, you were doing that instead of watching our beginning of our show?
I was listening to the start of your show, but it wasn't the. I mean, I can actually sit and watch. And just starting the first live, I could actually sit and watch jazz players with earmuffs on and not listen to them, just watching the technique. They're incredible musicians. Anyway, have I done the wrong thing here?
No,
Hello?
not at all, Joe. It's lovely to see you again. We first met about
Thank you very much for inviting me. Sorry to hear you're unwell, Tammy.
I'm all right, thank you.
we first met just over a year ago, didn't we? When you gave a talk, a similar sort of name talk, for the RSGB convention in 2020. And it was such a good talk, genuinely and interesting. I always had put at the back of my mind that it would be lovely for you to give us a similar talk for us. And you're quite a character. You don't mind me saying that, do you? So,
Really?
I think so.
You're only saying that because I spoke to you this morning.
That's true. But
Nobody else knows.
well, no. But you really surprised us as well with something. But I'm not going to spoil that now. Some people may have already guessed, but you really shocked us last year when we were doing the convention by revealing a fact at the end.
Tell the story because when the video comes on, you'll see it.
All right. Well, anyway, I'm going to hand over to you now, Joe. Just to remind everybody at home, though, if you have any questions or comments or anything for Joe, either during his talk or straight afterwards, please ask them on Facebook or on BATC, and we'll be very happy to pass them on to Joe at the end. But now we're going to find out how you can have fun with a small station with Joe Chester M1MWD.
Go now?
Yep.
Okay. I can't see my video, so I can't know what you're looking at.
We're looking at a cartoon. This is going well, isn't it?
Are people seeing me in shot as well?
We can put you in, actually. I tell you what, we'll put you in. Yeah, we'll put you in a little picture-in-picture. Just give Tammy a moment. There we go. Now we can see both. We can see you and we can see a cartoon.
Right. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Good evening, everybody. I don't know who's out there. This Zoom thing is a weird way to live. I have to admit that I had a small part in inventing it way back in the early 1990s when we did things called See You, See Me and that kind of stuff. Very early versions of this. And we had no idea back then it was going to turn into a lifeline for so many people. So thank you very much, the pair of you, for inviting me back. I didn't think it was that interesting what I did last year, but obviously people thought it was. So those are my details for anyone who wants them. And you'll also be aware that I've been writing a column in PW for the last few years, and the current version of that is called Having Fun with a Small Station. So the question you need to answer is, and I'm waving the answer at you, what is the smallest amateur radio station in the world? And we'll come back to this one later, because the real question is, what can you do with this thing? Sure, it's a VHF, UHF handheld, but would it go on HF? Can you make this thing work on HF? Well, I have a plan. So shall we roll on? This is what I intend to talk about tonight. It'll be familiar to most of you. I think it covers about almost everything under the sun in amateur radio in one hit list. I'll bounce around all over the place. I've been asked to say something about boats, because clearly you all know by now that I live on a boat, and I've been living on boats for about 20, maybe even 30 years. Sailed all around the UK on the ocean, and then we took up barging on the continent, and we have about 100,000 miles done before we gave up a couple of years ago. So I'm putting radios on boats. Yeah, I have a couple of things to say about that, which might be of use to you or not. Help yourself. I think that the first thing I want to say is that we are a social hobby. We are a crowd of technologists, yeah. We're a crowd of engineers, some professional, some amateur. We play around with gadgets and this kind of stuff, but primarily we're a social hobby. The very essence of what we do is called communication. We talk to people. It's also about enjoying ourselves, as playing with equipment we are licensed to play with, which the rest of the country is not licensed to play with. If the fun is gone, there's no point. It's the story of the golfer, he comes on and he's knocking in scores of 200 or 300, gets the lessons, and the handicap starts to fall, and eventually gets a handicap of 17 and thinks, I'm in for the big time now, and no matter how hard he tries, the handicap always stays at 17, and the fun goes out of it. So what does he do? Sell the golf club and take up tennis or something else. This hobby is about having fun. And what I want to emphasize tonight is that this is about having fun. Yeah, there's technical content. Yeah, we need to know a bit about stuff, but it is actually just all about fun. I also want to emphasize the fact that as we are engineers, whether we're full-time engineers or part-time engineers or amateur engineers or just hackers, our job is to find workarounds for engineering problems. And we have some engineering problems in the amateur radio space now. So our job is to fix these things. And that I will also highlight later. Does anybody remember Newark? Somebody get a hand in the back down there? Yeah? No? And last Hamfest I went to was Newark. And I was absolutely annoyed to see a guy walking around there saying life is too short for QRP. I want to talk about power and the abuse of power. If life's too short for QRP, it's also far too short to worry about QRO. By QRO, I mean full legal power. There's an old saying in the game that says, you want to buy an amp, you meet an angry neighbor. Adding an amp to a transceiver can be tricky. One of the things about hooking up a transceiver to an amplifier is that you have to worry about the power output of the transceiver. If you're not careful, because of the way modern transceivers work these days, they rely on the ALC circuit to actually turn the power down when you want to turn the power down. But there's a delay in that circuit. And if it doesn't happen instantly, you get what we call transmit overshoot. Yeah. Key up the PTT on many, many transceivers, and you get a fraction of a second overshoot of the selected power output, blowing the input stages of your amp. It's not an easy business. And then, of course, there's the ERP regulations. If you're playing with less than 10 watts, you can just ignore them. You can put up any antenna you like with 10 watts into it. It doesn't matter anymore. Have you ever considered the theory of QRP? Now, roughly speaking, power versus dB is about a 2-time scale. If you double or halve the power, you get a 3 dB increase or decrease in output. 1 S point is about 6 dB. So that's half a dB every time you double your power. So go up the steps. Start with 100, go 200, 400, 800, 1600. That's doubled, 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 doubled 4 times. If you're S7 at 100 watts, you'll only be S9 at 1600 watts. It works in reverse. Start at 100 and go down. 100, 50, 25, 12.5, 6.25. That's also 2 S points. If you're S9 at 100 watts, you'll be S7 with 5 watts. Would you like to hear this in practice?
Yeah.
Right. Well, now what we have to do is we have to start messing with the screen, which means I have to do that.
Okay. We'll come back to you then, Joe, for this bit while you do that.
No. There's a screen to go up.
Okay. All right. Okay, fine.
We need to show this. Are we up?
Yep.
I can.
If you do that, that's right. That if you click that, then we'll see the whole thing.
And now I'm going to play this. But before I start it, this is an amateur in America talking to a guy in South Africa. Yeah. And the two of them start at full legal power at both ends. And then they start slowly turning the power down until both of them are running 1 watt. And you can hear what they're hearing because they've recorded what they're doing.
Fine. Okay, we're recording. Whiskey Alpha 2, Tango Papa United on 5 watts. This is ZS1RJQ, Cape Town, South Africa. Take it away, Don.
It really means a lot to me.
Okay, you take it, Peter, and do the 1 watt thing.
Yeah, okay, good. Oh, thanks, Don. Whiskey Alpha 2 Tango Papa United from ZS1 Papa Zulu, Cape Town, South Africa and Company. Right, we're going to turn down power here. Right, we're running 100 whiskies, Don. We're slowly turning down. 85 whiskies, we're turning down. 50 whiskies, we're turning down. 30 whiskies, we're turning down. 25 whiskies, we're turning down. 20 whiskies, Zulu with Whiskey Alpha 2 Tango Papa United URP stateside running what? Are you copying, Don?
I'm turning my power. There's 5 watts. Hello. Okay. There's 4 watts. 4 watts. Hello. 3 watts. 1, 3 watts. Hello. 1, 2 watts. Hello.
We can still hear that audio though, Joe. Maybe if you close that window, maybe?
I need to kill the volume. I don't know where it's gone.
I think it's underneath that other one, the hack screen, I think. Oh, there we go. That one there. If you click on that and then just, I think that's probably the best. That's it.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
So I don't know about you, but I found that very impressive. And so there's 2 guys, what are they, 10,000 miles apart with 1 watt each. And in case anybody says beam aerials, they were using dipoles, 20-meter dipoles. So I rest my case, lads.
So were conditions exceptionally good, propagation conditions though?
That's the first question that everyone asked. No, the second question everyone asks. I had no idea what the conditions were like at the time. I have no idea when it was done. I've seen other videos the same of people turning down the power. You can do it yourself. Start up a conversation with somebody anywhere on any band and start turning the power down and ask them how they're hearing you. Yeah, and you will discover that with 1 watt, you can be heard quite clearly. Last time I did this, I was in a room full of amateurs, and there was a competition to see who put out the lowest power. Yeah, and one guy said he was actually working with 1 milliwatt, and he was still working the States with a wire area, with a wire antenna. And if you really want another example, 80 meters is very hard. Yeah, lots of noise on 80 meters. It's very difficult to transmit and be heard on 80 meters. Yeah. This is 3727 Thursday, 7th of October. Yeah. The top 3 guys putting out 100 watts to G5 RBs. And there's Kim, MW0 KNV portable in Midwell with 5 watts, 80 meter dipole, and he was S9, not just with me, but in Bletchley as well. So the QRO thing, guys, I'm sorry, it's a myth. Let's all just get over it and start having a bit of fun with the radio equipment we have. Which brings me to the question about transceivers. How many transceivers do you need? 1, 2, 3, 4? David, I know you're listening to me. How many transceivers have you got? Be honest.
My wife might join in.
I think the key question actually is how many are still in the box and have never been taken out?
Shush. No, that's not quite true, but they don't get you any use. I've probably got, without shush. Turn your microphone down again, please. I suppose about 4 or 5. I mean,
stop. I'm not going to ask you to justify them.
No,
I'm going
please.
to actually throw the bucket of water over your head.
I'm in trouble now.
Yeah, you are. Let's start with, I just want 1 transceiver, but it has to cover everything.
Yeah.
So look at the bottom line. If you needed to cover every band and every mode, but do you really need every band and every mode and all the antennas that go with that, microwaves and gigahertz and top band and low band? Do you really want all of that all the time? Or do you actually like the pair of shoes? Do you only ever wear 1 pair of shoes?
But that is it, though, isn't it? That people have favourite rigs for favourite jobs and things? Isn't that why people have multiple radios?
In the old days, yes.
Okay.
But modern transceivers are modern transceivers. Yeah. So you built yourself a TR, whatever it was, because you wanted to get on 80, and then you had a RACAL because you wanted to get on 160, and then you had something else because you want to get on 20. Yeah?
Yeah.
That day's gone. And it's gone a long, long time. The way I like to put it to people is this. Are you a radio operator or are you running a museum? And
Goodness.
there are too many of us running museums.
You're getting a lot of people in a lot of trouble tonight already, Joe. I'm going to have to sell half my radios now, you realise.
Okay, let me try to help you to understand why you did what you did and why you should actually get rid of most of your radios. Rob Sherwood, a friend of mine, you know Rob Sherwood because
Yes.
he did the thingy, yeah. Okay, too strong to say he's a friend of mine, but Rob and I have been in communication on and off for the last year or two, and I wrote several articles in PW about the conversation I was having with him. And we were particularly focused on a brand new radio that was being designed and built, and there was huge interest in it, and still is huge interest in it. They're up to about number 300 now in the hands of actual customers, and
It must be the
everybody. I didn't say anything. You said
okay.
that. Yes, the K4, and Rob and I have been talking about. I met Eric in New York. Got to actually touch the damn thing, and I was absolutely fascinated by it, because if you think about it, these two guys are engineers of some excellent reputation, and they're given a blank sheet of paper and told, go off and design the best rig you possibly can design. SDR architecture, put it computers, and do whatever you want. The very best money can buy. And then about 6 months ago, I had a Zoom call with Eric and said, hey, did you make it, Eric? Well, we could, if you give me another 10 grand for the radio, he says, I'll put a different ADC in it, and that'll improve performance. I said, no, Eric, it won't. It'll increase the number of data points. You'll need a larger chip, a processor chip to process it, but it won't actually improve performance because you're still using the same Fourier transform to do the downstream processing. Rob's conclusion, and I agree, is that you will not see in everyday use any difference between the top 20 rigs on Sherwood's table. Transmitter performance is another thing, yeah? But let's concentrate on receiver performance for the moment. This is Sherwood's table. I don't know whether you can see this clearly enough, Zoom audience. Give us a wave, Zoom audience, if you can see this.
They can't actually sort of wave back at the moment, but I think that's probably a little small. But people know, I think, to go to the Sherwood, they can go to the Sherwood engineering site and see that for themselves.
The top one on the list there, number one, is FTDX101D. And then you come nearly down to the bottom. The fourth one up from the bottom is called KX3. And then the second last one on that list is called K4. Yeah, just underneath that, there's the ICOM 7300. And the order that this is ordered by the right-hand column, yeah, which is called RMDR, yeah. Don't worry about what it means. Reciprocal mixed dynamic range array. It doesn't matter. And if you look down the numbers here, yeah, there's very little difference. The second last column, like that's 110, 108, 107, 107. These are dBs. So between the top and bottom of the list on the screen is 101 at the bottom and 110. There's 9 dB. That's 1.5 S points of a difference in receiver performance between the top and bottom. So you now have to start asking yourself another question. Do I understand exactly what Rob Sherwood is saying here? And the way to do that is to start asking questions. Is the number one radio on that list the best radio in the world? It's at the top of the league. Is it the best radio in the world? Not necessarily. It depends. There are other factors at play here, and if you read, for example, Don Field's review of that radio in PW a few months back, he wasn't exactly overjoyed by the ergonomics. Many other people have said the same thing. So why is the K4 so low down? Is it no good? Not necessarily the case. Because, of course, the K4 comes with a huge number of extra benefits that a lot of people really want. And when I wrote the article about this, I actually didn't show the front of the thing at all. I swung the back around and took pictures of the back of it. The interfaces on the back of that are just incredible. You can literally plug anything you want into it. Yeah, it has USB connections, HDMI connections. It has 6 antenna sockets. You can put anything you want just straight screwed into the back. With some of the radios, you buy, if you want to put Ethernet on it, you have to buy an adapter. There's an Ethernet socket on it. Yeah, there's Wi-Fi in it. Yeah, the interfacing is fantastic, and it's only 1.5 S points down from the top. So what about the KX3? KX3 is a small portable radio. It's about the size of a book. Why is that above the K4? Is it a better radio? Well, the answer, I'm afraid, again, is not necessarily. First of all, the KX3 is a completely different architecture altogether. On the other hand, yeah, you'd fit in your rucksack and take it out portable with you. You mount it out with the K4 or with the #1 radio on the list. So it comes down to, what do you want the radio for? What are you going to do with it? What kind of fun do you want to have with it? You want to climb mountains? Yeah, you're not going to lug a huge, battery box or a portable generator of a mountain for a full-size radio. You want something small. And there's lots of small ones out there. You mentioned one earlier, the BATC seems to be a good reputation. The G90 seems to have a good reputation as well. There are lots of other options here. I'm picking particular cases here to illustrate, a general point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You won't notice the difference in receive performance between the top and bottom of Rob Sherwood's list. Stick a pin if that's the way you want to do it, or think about the other things you want to do. This is from Rob Sherwood's presentation. What was it? There's something on Mondays, or whatever it's called. Yet, and the thing you do, David. Yeah?
Yes, yeah. I mean, we've actually featured. We have had Rob as a guest on our. On this NARC Live, but we also had him as an RSGB Tonight at 8 guest, as you say, a few months ago. Yeah.
I pinched the slide off him. Yeah. The point of this slide is if you can't work the damn radio, if the buttons are too small, if it doesn't do the other things you want to do, then its receiver performance is irrelevant. Does this mean you only need one radio? Not necessarily true. And if you saw my desk earlier, you see it's the 7300 sitting there. There's a couple of points down. Maybe it's two and a half, maybe 3S points down at the top. But for the use I make of it, I would not hear the difference between that and FTDX 101 in my shack for doing what I'm doing. Would you want to, get your head around an interesting case study? This is Mountain Man and Valley Man. I wrote this up in PW. I don't know if it's been published yet or not. Last time Don was at that meeting last time. I looked around, looking for Don. Mountain Man transmits 1500 watts all day, every day, all modes. Down the Valley Man is thinking of giving up because he can hear nothing. So if you are presented with this problem as part of the RSGB interference team or whatever you want to call it, where would you start? But clearly Mountain Man is using an FCC approved radio using the default settings from the manufacturer. He's a fully licensed, award-winning ham. There's nothing wrong with his station. It's well grounded. Yeah. He's perfectly entitled to do precisely what he's doing. So if that is the case, why is he putting Valleyman off the air? Is it because Valleyman doesn't know how to tune his radio up to tune out the interference from Mountain Man? In fact, if you think about it, does Mountain Man actually know how to adjust the settings on his radio? In fact, let's think about this. Do any of us? If I ask anybody sitting out in the Zoom audience there, where is the CW lift time to be found on your rig? Right now. Answer the question without having to go and and that's a critical parameter that you need to adjust to make sure that you're sending out as clean a signal as you possibly can. So the questions are, there are legions of questions. There is an entire conference to be had on this one case study. And it comes down to this. Transmitters need their own Rob Sherwood. We need to start paying more attention to the actual spurious noises our transmitters are putting out, rather than worrying too much about how good the receiver is. End of lesson. How am I doing?
Oh, yeah, no, it's good. I mean, we've had a few little comments, not questions as such. Joe, we've said just a couple of people, I think, agreeing the number of radios that people have. Rodney G0CBO says, must admit I'm guilty on that front. I have 5 HF transceivers and 4 VHF UHF transceivers. It's so addictive. And Tony G0MKG says, I've got 7 transceivers and 4 receivers in the shack and 3 more transceivers and several Eddystone receivers and a Hallicrafter and a Yaesu FRG7 receiver in the workshop. some of which are waiting repair. So I'm guilty on that one as well. Can I ask you just a question? I know this is your talk,
Well, you
but
can-
how
you-
many
you-
how many
I'm yours for tonight.
how many radios have you got?
2.
Okay.
Okay, if I include the UHF VHF one I just bought, it's 3. Yeah, because I mean the 7300 doesn't do UHF VHF, and the Yellowcraft, the KX3 doesn't either. I actually have the VHF board for the KX3, but I haven't put it into it. It's a really fiddly job, and anyway, it only puts out 100 milliwatts. I need a bit more power than that in the car, because that VHF UHF thing is normally in the car. Apart from the magic trick that we're getting to at the end of the session. So
Sure,
3.
okay.
Well, how many have I owned in my life? Never more than 3. In
Never
fact,
same
I would have answered 2, a couple of months ago. I only bought that VHF thing recently. Don't see the point. Yeah, that 7300 does everything I wanted to do. If I want to go up on 20, I get up on 20. If I want to go on 80, I get on 80 with it. If I want to do FT8, I can do FT8 with it. It does everything I want to do. And if you really want to, enjoy taking the thing apart and sticking new boards into the inside of it, you can do that too. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do it. I did want a K4. I even got approval from the accountancy department to deposit down on a K4. And
I mean, just as a complete aside, I know several people in our club as well are interested in K4. Do you have any idea of when they're going to be CE certified, which I believe is one of the hiccups of it? So when they'll be available in Britain?
No, they have been CE certified for over a year. I asked Eric that question a year ago. They've been CE certified, but CE certification doesn't mean sending one over to the EU to have it certified. Yeah, it's a paper exercise.
It's a type approval, isn't it, and things like that.
Yeah,
they can self-certify.
So can we ask another question? Is EU type approval what UK amateurs want?
Well,
because we're not in the EU anymore.
No, we're not going to go down that road. Yeah,
Thank
we
you
can
very
have
much.
a whole evening on that.
I'm just proving that. It's just proving
Yes.
that I'm still awake. It's been a long day. Okay, shall we move rapidly along? How's the time going? Yeah,
We're
good.
fine. We're fine.
And that frequency looks clear. We're still all right. And that board, there's a couple of things on that board. We might have problems. We'll see later. Right. Everyone talks about propagation. Yeah. One of the questions the second question I normally get on that slide is probably about propagation. So this is my answer. And you can all do this yourselves. These are the results from the CQWWDX SSB contest for the last, whatever it is, 16 years. Yeah. These are the 1 hour rates of that the contest operators were achieving on the left-hand scale. QSO rate, QSOs per hour. Normally at this stage, I go off and have a pint of beer and come back and then sweep up the pieces off the floor. As people kind of go, what exactly does it mean? I freehand drew that line and then marked the 2 arrows to show solar minimums. So clearly it follows the solar minimum, solar maximum thing. So it's a real graph, yeah?
Yes.
But what it's basically saying is that at solar minimum, these guys are getting over 300 SSB contacts an hour at solar minimum under contest conditions. And we complain about propagation. My friend Tony, G0LX, talking to him, not quite this morning, because for obvious reasons, but certainly one of the mornings last week, said after the net, which we come to, that was about 11:30 in the morning, he turned up, I turned on HF, and he got New Zealand on 14 megs, New Caledonia on 14 megs, South Africa on 21 megs from a dipole with SSB. At that stage, the band was flat. The cluster was showing nothing. Yet he tuned up his radio, wandered around the band, and he found those contacts. Propagation varies like the weather. Do you really not go down for a chicken for your Sunday lunch just because it's raining? The solar cycle exists. Yeah, the upswing has now started, and I gathered that over the last few days that there has been reasonable propagation on 15. But even at solar minimum, contesters are doing hundreds of QSOs every hour. And there's no reason you can't get there. I did a little kind of mini contest one night on 80 meters. Yeah, I got about, I think, 15 contacts in a quarter of an hour. Or did I get 15 contacts for the whole hour? I got 15 contacts for the whole hour, but that's 15 in an hour, more than I would have got if I hadn't come on the air. You do need to understand the art of the possible. There is no point in trying to do what's physically not possible. Yeah. So if you really want to set up a station so you can talk to your pal who emigrated to Australia every day, no matter what the solar cycle is doing, then you have an engineering problem on your hands. But the broadcasters had exactly this problem many years ago. Yeah, and their answer was, use the internet. In our case, just get in the air and call CQ. You never know who's going to be there. Which brings me to antennas, everyone's favorite topic. I'm going to start at the end here and work backwards. Stop talking about antennas. None of us really know anything about antennas. A light bulb will transmit. And there are stories of people who have got DXCC on 160 with a light bulb. So, why are we fretting about antennas all the time? There is absolutely nothing inherently wrong, Cassie, if you're hearing me, with a length of wire in your attic. Get 10 meters of ordinary wire, split it down the middle, stick a balun in the middle of that, connect up the coax, and you'll be on the air. You don't need to buy a mag loop or anything like that. A random piece of wire will work. CLC, big my in Silent Key, unfortunately, literally took every single antenna we amateurs could even imagine building, and he built them and tested them on ranges, on antenna ranges. He says a usable signal on more bands than any other contender from a piece of wire. Now read up a bit to get the best out of it. One of my friends from GW0POA, Mark from Wales, told me on Monday that he took his G90 and went out in a field where there was a tree, threw a length of wire, a random length of wire in a tree, and he sat down and he had a couple of hours fun and worked about 30 stations all around Europe on 20 meters with a random piece of wire and his G90. We obsess about antennas. We obsess about antennas because we think we understand them. We don't. No one antenna will do everything. Multi-band antennas are compromises on every band. Start simple, keep it simple. The best antenna you can possibly have is the fairly obvious one you're using. It's good to talk, but just throw a bit of wire up somewhere, connect an antenna up, match the thing properly, and you get more fun out of it than you will sitting there worrying about propagation. Okay, David, you asked me to say something about boats. I can stop here and go on for the rest of the night if you want.
Well, no, I didn't mean talk about boats, but as
yeah,
you
did.
know,
Exactly. Don't forget to talk about boats, you said.
Well, I just said that being in Norfolk here, we do have rather a lot of broadlands and and lots of boats, and I know that there are a couple of members actually who live on boats as well here. Good. So, in fact, one was mentioned earlier on. So I just thought they would be particularly interested because what I mentioned last year, that you did this talk just about small stations and things, and it was only right at the end of the RSGB talk that you surprised me by showing us a picture of your mast. And I said, well, which is you? And there was a buildings in the background, and you said it's me in the front. And I said, but that's a boat. And he said, yeah, exactly. And I know it's more obvious tonight when we see a picture of you, but we just didn't know, or I didn't know at the time, that you were working on a boat. So
yeah, I've owned all these and another one as well, and there's been amateur radio stations and all of those. If there are people Norfolk-ish, you may well recognise the picture in the middle. There's a building on the left-hand side that's quite famous. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if you know your Norfolk Broads, you'll know what that building is and who lives in it. So the one in the middle, it was launched in the London Boat Show, and they took it from the London Boat Show to Brundle to launch it. That's my little Nelson on the left-hand corner, the bigger Nelson or Aquastar on the right. my round the world yacht, top left hand corner, and the barge I lived on for about 20 years, sailing all over Europe, is the top right hand corner. And I sold that because of health issues. But last year we bought another one. So I now live on a boat which is 60 by 12. It's the only space I have for antennas. So what have I done? I've stuck an inverted L up. It covers everything. It covers everything. It's just like the word. If you want suggestions, there are lots and lots of suggestions about what to do. This is the standard powerboat image of sticking up an antenna on a powerboat. You might see them on fishing boats. But of course, the days of HF on fishing boats and all that kind of stuff is long gone now. They all have satellite phones and this kind of stuff. Other options, the backstay, verticals is what I use on all those boats. There's the famous sintered glass dyno plate thing you can use for a counterpoise. But if you're living on a boat or you have a small boat that you want to play with, there's absolutely no reason you can't put a radio in it and continue to have fun with your radio and your boat at the same time. This is what M1MWD looks like now. That's exactly where I am right now, sitting on the side of the river and the long pontoon there. I wonder, can you see the fishing pole coming up out of the back right-hand corner?
Yes.
The thing you saw.
And that looks like an M0 BCO antenna, isn't it? CVO antenna?
No, that's the 9-to-1 Unon.
All right, okay.
Yeah, which takes the... Yeah, I said, if you're going to use a length of wire, have a look, study lengths of wire and know how to get the best out of them. The problem with the end of a piece of wire is that the impedance is extremely high. So what that transformer basically does is it takes the high impedance and transforms it down to something closer to what your impedance matching unit can match. So that hangs in the wheelhouse. A piece of wire goes in one end. That's the antenna going out the other, and the counterpoise is going out the bottom. And if you want to look very, very closely in the top of it, you can see the black dot halfway across the white space. Mm-hmm. That's the counterpoise just thrown on the roof. I've worked Indonesia with 5 watts on 14 megs with that setup.
Can I just ask you, do you think there is an added advantage though, because you're on a boat and you've got a massive ground plane in the water itself?
It's fresh water. It's not quite.
No,
it's not
okay,
quite
not conductive enough to be very.
It's not. No, it's good, but it's not quite as good as seawater would be.
Yeah.
So. But the seawater is adding nothing to this. The counterpoise is a bit of wire thrown on the deck. So it's not grounded in the acceptable sense of that word.
Yeah.
So let's have a bit of fun, yeah? These are all the bits of fun I had recently. All of this stuff has been written up in PW, and I've had loads of fun and I met lots of interesting people and met lots of lovely people. I mean, one of my favorites is working contest stations in America on 5 watts. I absolutely love the jaw-dropping wow you get when you send in the report that you're running 5 watts. The normal report is 5.9, and you then say kilowatt, or you say 100 or whatever. When you say 5.9, 5.73, they kind of go, what? I was having Sunday lunch one Easter when the SSB contest was on, and I was in the spare bedroom, which was where the radio was sitting on a table, and a dressing table, just the corner of the dressing table, and the wire ran out and up the attic and into the antenna, and whatever to call it, this guy, and the guy came back so loud in the little KX3 that everybody going into dinner in the hall heard them, and they kind of went, "What was that? Who said wow?" I had a lot of fun that afternoon over lunch, trying to explain to people what exactly it was at and why that happened. This is Port Call in the rain, of course. KX3 as usual on the table. What I call my lighthouse in the background. That was a lighthouse that had never been activated. It's the last coal-fired power station still operating. No longer powered by coal. They converted it to gas in the 1800s. Tell me where they put the gas meter. Go on.
I don't know.
Again.
Well, no idea. In the top?
Nope. Right at the bottom of the lighthouse. So the lighthouse keeper had to crawl on his hands and knees in a force 8 gale, through wind and rain, to put a penny in the slot to keep the light on. Wow. The funny story there is that if you go from the right hand picture, if you follow the thing from left to right and keep going, there was a pub and restaurant in there, and as I was working away there, 2 pints of beer wandered over and kind of went, "Sorry, are you catching fish?" I said, "Not quite." And then a young lady, probably no more than 8 or 9, said, "No, Daddy, he's catching radio waves." I smiled beatifically at the young lady and then grinned at the 2 pints of beer. They were very impressed.
Yeah, that's lovely, isn't it? It was pretty true, really, catching the radio waves.
Yeah. So how did she know? They didn't. But move on. This is the AX1.
Oh,
I actually don't have it because I left it in the car and I didn't get. I forgot to bring it down. This is basically a base-loaded car aerial. Now, don't tell Wayne I said that because he'd be very furious. This comes from Helicraft as well, and that's it sitting on a tripod. Clearly not a DX antenna. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting in the car with that sitting on the grass beside me. I worked the UN in New York with 5 watts.
Goodness me. How tall is the bit that we can't see off the top of the picture, by the way?
It's literally a car aerial.
Okay, so it's not much taller, probably scale-wise, not much taller than what we can see.
Scale-wise, it's exactly the same as a car aerial. So it's a base-loaded car aerial. You can switch it between 20, 17 and 15, and there's an extender, an extra coil you can get to screw into the bottom of it to put it on 40.
It looks from the photo, and we can maybe see it easier than members at home. The circuit boards and things. So is it active? Has it got some electronics in it?
Nope.
No, it's just a passive device.
Totally passive. Now there's a counterpoise that just throw the counterpoise in the grass. Don't worry about it. Now, okay, there's a trick to work on those guys, yeah. Which was they were calling and calling and calling, and then he decided to start working splits. And I went, oh God! So I programmed those splits on the two receivers in the KX3 and sat and waited. And I heard him call CQ twice and instantly switched over and called and came back to him. There was a pause in the stream of contacts going into him, yeah. Because he called CQ, nobody answered. He called CQ again. I switched over instantly and caught him. You have to think about what you're doing. But yeah, that was. And by the way, in case you think I sat there all day for that, I put that up while my wife at the time went to the fish shop to get a bit of fish for the tea. So it was only up for about 20 minutes, half an hour most.
Goodness me.
If I hadn't got it with me, I wouldn't have got that guy.
No.
Think about this, guys. The best transmitter, the best antenna you have is the one you have with you. Now let's talk about getting on 80 meters. Is it easy to get on 80 meters? What do you think, David? Just tune up and away you go.
It depends where from. It depends which radio I want to use as well.
Your choice radio. That complicates things.
I haven't learned anything. No, I'm probably not the best person to ask, should we say that? But yeah, halfway dipole, 20 meters long. Right, okay.
Yeah, halfway dipole for is 80 meters long. Yeah. That's not going to fit in many back gardens. It's not going to fit in an attic.
Yeah.
Or an apartment. So what do you do to get on 80 meters? Now, you have to understand a little bit about 80. This is my whole point here, yeah? To have fun, you need to understand a little bit about the science behind this stuff, but you don't need to be an expert. I tried a vertigo, and this is my fishing pole again. And believe it or not, it's the exact same piece of wire, and the counterpoise is running along that fence. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive on a boat.
No, this is the picture on the right's not a boat.
Oh, I'm teasing.
It's a bungalow.
All right. Yeah.
80 meters is, as you go down and down and down, yeah, the losses in the system get higher and higher, yeah. Unless you really do serious engineering, your losses overcome the power you can put in, and this is why people go QRO. The easy way out of this is to simply, if I'm losing 70% of my power, the easy way out of it is to throw 70% more power in, and then suddenly I got 100 watts going out of the antenna. My view is if you're a little bit more careful about how you set up the damn thing in the first place, it'll work. Now I do have a little SARC 70, SARC 100 thing antenna thing for tuning up the antenna. And I did spend a good few days shortening and lengthening and shortening both the antenna and the counterpoise to get the thing to perform. The people who were helping me was the NRC, and particularly the NRC net people. But of course, there might be another way to do this. Oh, sliding the wrong order. That's the fishing pole again. Same length of wire on 80 meters up at Pepperbox Hill where Marconi started his work. I worked beyond Moscow one morning with 10 watts on 80 meters with that. And you can just see the counterpoise in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, the yellow wire. Yeah. That's the counterpoise. The counterpoise sits on bamboo rods, made as wigwams. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I stick 3 of those out and stick the counterpoise up along that. Conditions on 80 are difficult. Propagation is very, very poor, especially during daylight hours. Noise levels are very high. Frequently in my house, they're better than S9. I'm hoping that you're now seeing my radio station.
We can't see your station, no. Oh, now we can, just about. We can see it 7300, I guess that is.
Yeah, that's my 7300. Yeah. 688, if you want to do a quick rush out. I think my head is probably going to disappear out of shot. I'll sit down a second. It's fun to have a chat with operators rather than just to do the normal 5-9, thank you very much, move on, next call stuff, yeah? So on 80 meters, there are a lot of what we call nets every day of the week. Now, some of these are club-based. Some of them are interest-based, like Amstrad or BMARS. But there is one net that's been running since the day lockdown started. Nigel G4RWI started it. He was given an award recently for it. You may have seen it in Radcom. It's called the NRC net. It was started by a group of people who are volunteers at the National Radio Centre, of which more later. We are on the air every morning at 10:30, 3727 megahertz or thereabouts. 5 days a week. The crew of us man the net. Everyone is welcome to join in. You will join in for a chat, join in for a signal report, just tell us how the weather is, tell us you got an Amazon delivery. What did we talk about? Well, I'm tired trying to explain to people. I also volunteer in the NRC. Now, what do you talk about? So now I say, do you ever go down the pub? Do you? Really? And what do you talk about down the pub? Well, it's the same on air, except that I don't have to leave the house. And if I want to have a glass of wine, I can, because I don't have to drive home. And that lights up people when they hear that you can do that. So getting on 80 is not that easy, but it can be done. And I am on 80 meters from this station every morning at 10:30. Sometimes I'm net controller, sometimes I'll be net controller in the morning at 10:30 if anyone wants to call in. Everyone says I can't hear people on 80 meters because the noise level is so high. So if I turn that up, that's S9 noise. Yeah, you'll hear nothing. Well, how do we get around this problem? We're engineers. We have ways of working around this. And the answer is the web SDR. Stafford on 160m.net, Hack Green, Western Supermare, Conway, and there's loads of other ones. I've even heard of another one that may come on the air shortly. The web SDRs are normally located in parts of the country where the noise level, the signal-noise ratio is good because the noise level is very, very low. Therefore, you can hear them. You can't transmit on the web SDR, but you can hear it. That's actually Hack Green. But you're going to see more of Hack Green in a minute because we're going to try an experiment now. This is the smallest amateur radio station in the world. I think we're up there, but I don't see anybody jumping on our channel. Have you got your receivers there?
I've got it here, yeah. I'll just explain to everybody at home. I don't know what Joe's going to do, but I have got this, which Mark G0LGJ programmed up for me with my call sign. It's a DMR. I know nothing more, so Joe just said...
Well, that's all you need. But this is the handset, the DMR handset, and there is a thing called a zoom spot or a hotspot, or whatever you want to call it, plugged into a power source, and it's connected to the internet. Right, so let me say something about DMR before I continue. This is a picture that will appear in print shortly. It's in an attempt to explain what DMR is. I'm not going to spend much time on it, but I want to highlight the fact that this is real radio. The coloured boxes between the radio and the open air, they are actual FM radio signals working on analog radio channels. In some cases, it's voice, and in some cases, it's digital voice, ones and zeros. Of course, once you get it into digital format, you can stick it into an IP packet. With an IP packet, you can put an address in it, and it can wander all around the universe. So, here we go. I'm going to light up Hack Green. I think I lit up Hack Green before. Hack Green has gone dead. I have to light Hack Green up again. Hang on. Okay, Tammy, you have to do your magic here, yeah?
Okay.
The boys will need to hear this. You need to put a channel on here. 688. 368. Right. Yeah, it's reasonably clear. I think it might work. So, Tommy, is everybody hearing Hack Green, yeah?
We can hear that, I think, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to turn this away a little bit so we can't see the magic going on. So what I want you to now to do is I want you to call me on TG83.
You want me to call you?
Yeah.
Okay, just show everybody at home, actually. I don't know, Tammy, if you can just show a picture just so we can see both of us maybe at the same time. Sorry, we're just going to do this, Joe, so that everybody at home can see what we're doing. And for those of you like me, maybe you've never seen this. This is a DMR. It's a relatively low cost DMR.
URP. This is M1MWD. I'll copy.
I'll try and call you now.
Okay.
M1MWD. This is G7 URP.
Yeah, it's coming out. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is to listen, and I want you to call CQ on 80 meters. David, do it now.
Really? CQ on 80 meters. This is weird. I've got someone else coming in on this at the moment. I've got CQ. This is G7 URP calling CQ and standing by for any calls.
Sorry, my mistake. I was pushing the PGC. Sorry, do it again.
CQ. This is G7 URP calling CQ and standing by for any calls. So I'll show everybody at home what we're...
Yours? You want to do it again?
I'll do it again, yeah.
Did you hear it on 80 meters?
I didn't. I think I've got an earpiece in, which is sort of listening to your radio. I don't know if anybody at home can make it out, but let's try it again anyway. Here we go. It is? Yeah, I think so. I don't know what that noise means.
You're on, David. You're on.
CQ. This is G7 URP calling CQ and standing by for any calls.
You sure you're on 83?
I'm on TG83, yeah. I can't hear anything at the moment.
Let me just check that 83 is working. David, can you hear me?
Yes, Joe, I could hear that bit then.
Right, okay. Now, try. Yeah, I can hear you now. So on your call CQ and on 80 meters.
Do it now?
Yep.
CQ. This is G7 URP Golf 7 Uniform Romeo Papa calling CQ and standing by for any calls. There'll be people on here who never even heard me call that.
You hear it that time?
I couldn't, no.
I heard it.
Did you?
Yep.
Okay.
I can't hear anything.
Is there, just as a thought, Joe, and I know I really didn't know, as you know, you wouldn't tell me what we were doing. We were just going to try a bit of magic, you said. If anybody at home wants to tune in directly rather than listening to what we're broadcasting here, because there will be a bit of latency, is there a way that they can join in? If they go to Hack Green now, will they be able to hear this?
Yeah, they'd be able to hear it. But let's continue on with the presentation.
Okay.
The point of the story is that your DMR radio was able to put out a signal on Hack Green on 80 meters, and I clearly heard it on Hack Green back through the hack green instance that I had lit up for this presentation. So I know it was working and I could clearly hear it, but maybe you need to get your ear used to it or something or other. Yeah. So let's not worry about it too much. Where am I? Am I still? Yes, there we are. So the question is, how is it done? Yeah. And is it of any use to anybody? Well, let's think about this for a minute. Let me put up the next slide, start from current slide and hit the next one down. This is the secret of the magic trick. You remember what I said about DMR handsets, and this applies to Fusion and to D-Star as well. These are devices that take analog voice in and turn it into digital ones and zeros. And then they take those ones and zeros and modulate the FM radio signal that's coming out of the digital handset. So what's coming out is analog FM, and it's being modulated by the ones and zeros that your voice has been turned into. Yeah. Mm. When those ones and zeros hit the thing called hotspot, they get an IP address that's stuck on the front end, and then it wanders around all over the net to be picked up by anybody listening for that IP address. And basically the talk group idea is the IP address of the group of stations or handsets that are listening on TG83 in that talk group. When you press the PTT and join the talk group, you join that group of handsets. So if somebody presses the PTT, every handset in that group will hear you. And that handset can be anywhere.
So this was, I mean, the one you told me to set it to is called TG83, Talk Group 83. So how many talk groups are there?
Thousands.
Oh, right, okay.
And thousands and thousands. But it's organised in a hierarchy from TG1 to TG2 and then the TG10s and 11s and 12s and then the 20s. And it's organised in a hierarchy down to the hundreds and so on. So, but if you want to think about these as chat rooms, you can. But to get into the chat room, you have to be a licensed radio amateur. Mm-hmm. Now, what I said was, it goes around the internet and comes out wherever there's another handset that's also listening on the talk group that you're transmitting on, which means it could be anywhere, literally anywhere. So while I was drawing that picture that you see on the screen there now, or rather writing the text to go with it, I was listening to an American talking to an Australian, talking to a mobile station in the north of Scotland, all on TG83. And then I thought to myself, wow, 80 meters is a difficult place to get people to go on. And there are people who can't put up 80-meter dipoles. And then there are people who can't put up any antennas. And then there's a story that's true, because it's been told to me by someone I trust, of the 93-year-old radio amateur who apparently had been trained by Marconi himself, had a room full of stuff, had to go into a care home. And the boys in the club thought it's hard enough for Jack to go into the care home without losing all his radio gear. So they bought him a DMR handset and a hotspot, set it up on the bedside table beside him every morning. He's not on 80 meters, but every morning he talks on his digital handset to friends in his club, in his local club, and to other clubs, and even all around the world. And the little time I've spent with DMR, they're now starting to swap QSL cards. We radio amateurs have to understand something. IP, that I'm reluctant to say this, but I had a small part in the birth of, has changed every industry it's come in contact with. It's changed shopping, Amazon. It's changed every industry it goes near. We will not be able to hold back the tide when people start understanding that you can use a 60-pound handy talkie and talk on HF. This is an experiment I did about a month, 6 weeks ago. I went to Ireland, booked into a hotel, brought my handy talkie with me and my hotspot, and of course I brought me my MacBook. I sat in the hotel room, turned on the MacBook, switched up Hack Green. It's a web service. You can hear it anywhere in the world. You don't even need a license to turn on Hack Green or to turn on 160.m or to turn on any of the other web SDRs. Anyone can do it. Yeah. So I had that on, so I can now listen to the NRC net at 10:30 in the morning. Simultaneously, I had this tuned up to TG83. Nigel, my friend, G4RW, I was net control that morning. He uses a 7300. So before the net started, I gave him a shout on TG on Talk Group 83 and said, I'm here. He said, Grand, he said, I'll call you in turn. So the net started up and they started a row about updating sat-nav receivers or something that I didn't quite follow because I was kind of a little bit high on the prospects of what I was going to do next. Well, eventually, Tony stopped, was talking, and I heard Nigel on TG83 say, you're next. So I got a piece of paper, scribbled a few notes down, and then Nigel said on air, because I heard him on Hack Green, and now he said, we have a surprise for you. Joe is in his hotel room in Dublin and is going to join NRC net on 80 meters. So I keyed up the TG, the handy, and sent an over into the net. And the next guy up said, Nigel said, thanks very much, Joe. And now it's somebody else's turn playing. Yeah, I got 5 and 9 reports because nobody realized what was going on.
Yes.
Nobody knew what we were doing, the two of us. Now, we've done this experiment 3 or 4 more times. Yeah. The signal from the DMR handset goes into the network. It comes out at a hotspot somewhere else in the world, in this case in Nigel's or in Roger's or in Ed's or anywhere else. Yeah. Comes out on his digital handset. And the trick, well, we could do with some expertise here, David, and I did hear you mention the mixer. I think there's a way to use a mixer to actually do this thing properly. But for now, all we do is we just hold the DMR handset up to the microphone of the 7300. And you can be clearly heard on 80 meters.
Is that what you were doing then? If we couldn't see?
That's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing right now.
Right.
Now, I did say to you when we started this, most magicians will not tell you how the trick was done. But that's all we did. But think, step back and stop thinking technology and think, what could you do with this? If it really is that simple to put a DMR handset on HF, what could you do with this?
But can I just ask you something? I'm playing a bit of devil's advocate, but that's my job.
I'm looking forward to it.
If you just want to speak to somebody, we would all argue now. I mean, many years ago, 30, 40 years ago, it was far too expensive to phone people up or anything like that. So this was a real option. But if you do want to speak to somebody now, there's lots of other ways that you can use the internet, like Zoom, like we're using now, and all sorts of other technologies, Skype, and all those sort of digital technologies to speak to somebody. For many people, not for everybody maybe, but for many people, the attraction of amateur radio is the challenge of actually doing, and talking to people and using the most purest forms. So is getting that antenna up, getting the radio connected. And I think that's maybe why does it get a bad press? Because it's saying it's not real radio, because it's not real radio throughout. So a lot of it is, this radio that I used a moment ago, that's talking to a repeater about actually a couple of miles away as it happens from me. So that's what I think I'm asking probably for other people watching it as well, and just saying, is that real radio? Because a lot of the journey of my voice was being made by digital IP telephony.
You can ask the same question in a different way. What's the right call sign? To you.
Yeah. Well,
Clearly, I'm a licensed radio amateur in Ireland, so I can use my Irish call sign to hit the PTT button on that thing, no problem. Then it comes out in Nigel's, and he hits the PTT on his radio, and it goes into his radio and comes out all over 80 meters. So what's the right call sign to use? Surely it's Nigel transmitting my voice, so maybe I should be using G4RWI stroke A, but that wouldn't cover the Irish portion.
No. I mean, the bit that I was at least conscious of using our radio, obviously was my call sign.
That's the same question, David.
Right, okay, yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
And this will come out in PW in a month's time, I think. And I've deliberately written up to be controversial about it by asking this question openly: what is the right call sign? To trigger in people's head that this is new. Is it legal? What, have we done anything illegal? Can't see where we have. Or shall we not use the word illegal, but against the regulations? Now, let's then talk about the fact that we have lots and lots of amateurs who are distinctly antenna challenged. And we have lots and lots of amateurs who are, restricted in other ways, who still want to play with radios and have a bit of fun.
I mean, you used a great example with your gentleman in the care home. I mean, that's a fantastic example of how he can still do his hobby from, from a hotel or a hospital bed or something like that even.
I'm going to use the phrase that I want to replicate on a large scale. The IP thing has disrupted every industry it came in contact with. It's now arrived here, and we are going to change whether we like it or not. If that means that radio amateurs who want to use your phrase, purist about it, want to shut up shop and go home, well, that's what happened to the high street when Amazon arrived. I look at it the other way around completely. This is something young people are interested in because the internet's involved. And I can't wait for dozens and dozens of young people energized by the idea that this thing creates to come and join the hobby and take us to places we've never been before. I can't wait. I really can't wait.
Well, and of course, it isn't a question of that it has to take over all the airwaves. There's plenty of airwaves there for the purists to use analog radio to talk to each other, isn't there?
The whole point of the conversation this evening is go have a bit of fun. Mm-hmm. All I'm doing is having a bit of fun in a more interesting way than just sitting there saying, oh, I can't get on 80. Yeah, you can, in all sorts of ways. Oh, that didn't work because I have the other side of the thing up. Start from.
Well, we can show you if you're going to show a slide. Yeah, we can come back to your slides.
All right, it's all right. So, point number one: costing the earth. Having fun with radio doesn't cost the earth. Notice I said radio. I didn't say radios. Small stations can have loads of fun without getting into high power and all that kind of stuff. I've only scratched the surface on this talk. The key is get on the air and call CQ and stop thinking about it. Just get on the air, call CQ, any band, any mode, any day of the week. But if you think about it a little bit, you might find one that might work a little bit better for you. I thank you for your time and patience, but now has to come the advertising. A word from my sponsor. May I inquire what you know about the NRC, David, to help me out with this?
Me? Well, I must admit, until about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I wouldn't have known very much. I knew it was obviously something... Actually, that's not quite true, but for very odd reasons. So you probably picked the wrong person, because when the RSGB had some issues about 10 years or so ago with a member of management, shall we call it, they needed an interim board to sort of get them back on the right track, and I was part of that interim board. And actually, as it happens... part of my portfolio was a thing called GB for Fun and the National Radio Centre. So I know a little bit more than probably the average person. However, I went there about a month ago because we were doing some filming, and I was able to see that, and I was able to see all of the, apart from that wonderful radio station that they've got that you can see there, of course they've got wonderful displays of radio, the basics of radio, how it works, for the public to explain how radio works.
Right. So here comes the ad. The National Radio Centre is probably one of the world's finest radio stations, bar none. Yeah, what you're looking at on the desk there in front of you is, on the left-hand side, a complete satellite station with fully steerable antennas, both in elevation and azimuth, automatically controlled by the boxes on the second shelf up. Every radio is connected to a separate computer. If you move along, then that's the FT5000 DX that we use for for 40 meters and 80 meters, and then the extreme right hand one is a Flex 6000 that we use on the higher bands on 20 and 80 and on up there. As a privileged volunteer for the NRC, I get to play with all this kit. And by the way, behind me, where I'm standing, taking the photograph, there's a NOSCO 100 station as well.
Yes, I remember that was in the corner near the door when we were doing it.
And it's all connected up to the best antennas you can get. The FT has two antennas, a long wire and a multiband dipole, and the Flex is connected to a step IR. And it's all completely automated. So that's log 4OM running on the small screen on the right hand side there, and you can the cluster is there running. You see somebody on the cluster. You click that, the Flex switches over, switches the antenna around, tunes the antenna for you, and you're ready to go. Where did I work recently? I worked Guinea-Bissau recently, a place I've never worked before. One afternoon, it was reasonably quiet in the NRC. I was just fiddling around with the thing, trying to learn how to use it as much as anything else.
And I guess the same. Sorry, Joe. I was going to say, they are always looking for volunteers. Oh, well, there we are. That's you're putting that up. Yeah.
We need a minimum of 3 volunteers 7 days a week to man this thing. We have about, I don't know what the current number is, because I got a text from Martin saying that a couple more had joined in recently. If you can give us 1 day a month up in Bletchley Park, you'll be more than welcome. And you get, as a benefit, to play with all this kit. Let's put it this way, another way to avoid spending $6,000 on a Flex.
Yes. And
right.
I can't remember. Was it the weekends that they're having a struggle with? I think particularly, was it weekends?
Yeah, I do weekends mostly because they're struggling with it.
Yes,
what I do is I do 2 days in a row because I'm 2 hours away by car. Yeah. So I go up. I drive up the first day, stay overnight, and drive home the second night, and it works for me. And we pay travel expenses.
Yes.
That just about covers the cost.
I was just going to mention that. I wasn't sure, but I think they will pay travel expenses. And and from Norwich, where we live, which is not too far from Norwich, we were doing this trip to do some film, and that's 2 hours as well. So it's a great advert.
I checked. Did I check Norfolk or Norwich? I thought I checked Norwich. I thought Norwich was an hour and a half, but it doesn't matter.
No, it's about a couple of hours, we think.
You're the same journey time, yeah?
Yes.
So if any amateurs listening to this tonight would like to come and join us and have a bit of fun in the NRC, talk to people and tell them how much fun you're having in the hobby, encourage others to join us, play with the toys in the toy box, you'll be more than welcome.
And I think there's a side advantage is you can look around Bletchley Park as well, can't you?
Oh, you get free entry to Bletchley Park and all that kind of stuff as well. But
yes,
I promised Martin that on my tour of the clubs this autumn I would appeal for help, because it's as I say, I personally think it's probably one of the finest radio stations in the world. It's been built over 10 years.
Yeah,
and Martin has done an absolutely brilliant job in wording it all up and documenting it and putting in user guides to everything. So, there's plenty of help around there. And of course, significantly, you get to put GB3RS on the air when you're there. When I'm in there, I normally like to run the 80 meter net from there. A lot of people think the distraction of the visitors behind them is too much, but I enjoy it because I drag the visitors into it by basically saying, "Hello, what's your name? Okay, hold on." So I call out to, Tony. So I said, "Tony, say hello to Mark or John or whatever's right behind me," and they're amazed that the voice comes back straight away.
And there's other areas, it's fair to say as well, in the NRC where you can get involved as well and just helping visitors come, because they have an enormous number of visitors. I wish I could remember the number. I don't know if Tammy remembers how many people were that weekend that we did it.
They're currently getting 1,500. There was one weekend I was there, they got 3,000 on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And we get about 50% of that in the NRC.
Yes.
In a steady stream. Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming, and we have to, really just get into queue management with people. But most of the time, it's small groups of people wandering through, and when you say to them, this is radio. They go, radio? I thought that was dead.
But
Anyway,
it's nice, isn't it? The rest of the display. I mean, I just compel our viewers as well just to go, even just as a visitor, to see it. If you're an RSGB member as well, you can get a free pass to go as part of your membership. Make sure you do that, because otherwise you have to pay about, I think it's £20 to get in. But if you're an RSGB member, you can pre-download the day before a ticket to get in. One little change that they've made, which you may not have seen, Joe, is I know that they have made a change now. You have to book a sort of slot to go into there since COVID. So you have to have a time slot.
You have a time slot to go into Bletchley.
To Bletchley,
not
yeah.
Not to the NRC.
No.
I'm not sure that that's still in force. The last time I was there, they were taking walk-ins.
Okay, right. But okay. Now, we've got a few comments for you, but this is a time...
Before you do, can I put it this way? Come for a visit and stay and join us.
Exactly. I think to go and see it, if you haven't seen it, and the rest of Bletchley Park, incidentally, because it's all really good, it's very, very good to see. Now, just so this is a plug now, because I think we're getting towards the end of the programme, and Joe looks like he'll need another glass of wine or something shortly. So if you have any questions or comments...
I'm, for the reason that you know about, I'm on antibiotics.
Okay. Well, but anyway, if you've got any questions for Joe, or you agree or don't agree with some of the things that he's said or done or whatever, but I mean, it's all been about fun. We would love to hear from them now, so please ask them either on BATC or Facebook. We've actually got a comment already, a question from Justin G8YTZ, and he says, I'll be there Saturday. I'm going to take the TV kit. They said there's up to 500 a day, maybe more. And I think there were 800 or 900 the weekend we were filming, because we had to tape off that part of it because we were filming in that area for something for the convention. But you know, it is a very, very popular display. Really good. Let's see if there's any other messages. No, I don't think we've got any messages for you at the moment.
Sorry, who's going in on Saturday?
Justin G8YTZ.
Justin.
Oh, just on receive, he says he's going to see if we can get receive on QO100. So,
right.
But
what's Justin's call sign again?
G8YTZ, Yankee Tango Zulu.
Yeah, well, I'll pass that on to whoever's on, so they know who it is.
Good.
I'll pass that on to whoever's on.
Well, it's been a wonderful talk,
well,
Joe, and very entertaining. I mean, you have shown us that you could do more fun. I mean, is the fact that you can use these DMRs, which you've said is relatively new for you, do you see this really now, changing? And I mean, do you even see the day maybe where you don't have your HF rig there and your antenna?
I think we are a crowd of people who are licensed to play with radios. And, whether you've one radio, 3 radios, or 20 radios, the fun is playing with the radio. And of course, that means getting the radio on air. Now, I can't see DMR replacing HF for many people, but I see it integrating into HF. I was talking to an American guy recently on email, and they're thinking about setting up a DMR to HF gateway in Alaska so that people can experience auroral propagation, which you can't do when you're down south. But with your DMR handset you could. Now, we haven't sorted all the problems with this kind of notional half-ass gateway idea. I'd like it, to be a more serious piece of technology rather than just having somebody push the PTT. And there's a lot of work to do on that. And I met Justin and Guy in the NRC last weekend or the weekend before, and he wants to follow up with it as well to try to turn it into a kind of a turnkey solution for people who want to play with this kind of stuff.
Yes, I mean, Justin has actually just added a little comment. He's a volunteer already, so I guess that he's already booked in to go there. We had a comment from Mike, G4DYC, says, thank you very much for your very stimulating talk. I enjoy your articles in PW, a great magazine, he says. So I don't know if we have any other questions or anything for you, but I mean, it has been a different way to look at radio as well. And because we're in Norfolk, I was hoping that I know at least one Tim M1MWD is on the Broads and has a boat there, and maybe he had some comments or thoughts about working on on a boat, but you clearly don't find it holds you back in any way on your hobby.
Jump in the car, take the KS3 and the X1, sit in the car park, grab a coffee from the Costa. Don't sit in the Costa. Go back out and sit in the car and get on the air. No one's going to stop you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And
absolutely.
you never know who you end up going to. I think I've put them all to sleep.
No, not at all. Rodney G0CBO says, as much as I enjoy digital radio, etc., nothing beats the thrill of using CW and tuning the HF bands. That's a view.
Right. Much as I love classical music, nothing beats watching a classical pianist absolutely hammering the ivories.
Yeah. Oh, but there's something for everybody in this.
You know, much as I like pitch and putt, yeah, I really like the long walk involved in 18-hole golf. I mean, compartmentalizing ourselves into little stovepipes and sitting in those stovepipes, not thinking about who's living in the house next door, you know, and what's the guy next door up to. I saw the guy out there putting up a wire up, and I don't know what he's at, kind of stuff. Yeah.
But I think you're not. I would have thought you're not saying that people who have 4 or 5 radios because they like different parts about them, maybe the way they're used and the ergonomics and things like that. They're not wrong, are they? Because maybe for them, that's the nice bit of the hobby. They like to use different bits of equipment, and they like the particular way some of them, just like people have different cars. I mean, most cars will get you from A to B, but it's the way they do it and the way they drive and everything that's going to make them different for people. So it's not wrong, is it, to have all these different radios?
Any colour you like, as long as it's black.
Oh, well, that's for you to say, but there'll be a lot of people who've got more than one car and enjoy and have, you know.
That was the Ford thing.
The Ford, yes. Yeah, the original one, yes.
Yeah, it's a vast hobby with a huge potential to do all sorts of weird, interesting things. My plea is just to push the PTT button and go and have fun. You know, I haven't been on, for example, I haven't been on 6 meters in a couple of years. 6 meter propagation probably beginning to ramp up next summer. Maybe it's time to put a 6 meter antenna up and stick in the back of that 7300, or maybe get a portable one. I have a fancy dream. The buddy pole kit hasn't been used recently, but I do know how to build a 10 meter beam with that buddy pole kit. Yeah. So I have a dream of rocking up to a car park, sitting in the corner of the car park and sticking a 10 meter beam up in the corner of the car park and working at 10 watts with the KX3. I think that'll be really fun. Equally, I think there's fun to be had with the DMR stuff. Have fun, lads.
Yeah, no, I think you're stirring it up nicely, and that's fine, and that's just what it's for. Yeah, I've got a few little comments here. We've got Paul M1AFQ says, "Here, Rodney." That was the guy who said that you can't beat putting up an antenna. Alan G800 says, "Well said, Rodney." So there's a few people on this side, but Tony M0TDK says, "I did NFD CW from my boat on the Broad several years ago." So there we are. Someone else with a boat who uses that. Justin, I must just tell you as well, has come back again and said, Lola Astronova plays the piano really well. Look her up on YouTube. So an advert for...
I know Lola very well. Thank you.
Oh, well, there we are. You two can talk about that when you're next at the NRC together. And Sunny M0SYW says, it reinforces what we did on the last interactive. Anything will work. There are superstations that work incredibly well, but there is a place for this QRP. So there we are. I think that wraps up.
I leave you with a boating story.
Okay.
You know what a motor fishing vessel is? The stuff to go out and catch the haddock for the fishing ships. Yeah. We were in Troon. We were living on a boat in Troon at one stage, and an MFV was hauled out for service and repair and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I wandered around the boatyard, and I knew the engineer in charge of the boatyard. And I said, "Steve, lovely boat." He said, Yeah. He said, "I know what's going on in your head." I said, "Really? You know, you can read my mind." He said, "I know exactly. I can see it in your eyes." He said, "You're looking at that and saying, wow, that'd be a great boat. And I'm not that expensive. I could buy one of them." Yeah. He said, how did you work that out?" So he took a screwdriver up off the ground and went over and pushed the screwdriver straight to the hull of the boat. He says, it's a wooden boat, he says. Do you want to be a shipwright or do you want to go sailing? I rest my case, lads.
Well, I think we better not get
you want
into...
to play with the guts of a radio, or do you want to actually go and talk to people?
But there's nothing wrong in either, though, is there? I think you'd agree. Come on, you said the hobby's big enough for all of these things, and whether you like tinkering or playing, absolutely.
It's about having fun.
Yep, and I'm sure that's something we. And I'm sure that's something we'd all
David.
agree
Thanks,
with.
Tammy. I hope the boys...
Thank you ever so much, Joe. Do take care of yourself and have wonderful fun on the water as well. And thanks for inspiring people tonight that whatever your situation, whatever your station, however big or small, or even one of these £60 things. And thank you very much, by the way, to Mark G0GJ for programming and dropping this off to me yesterday. And thank you very much again for a wonderful talk, Joe. Take care.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
See you next time. Thank you.
Oh, I could have done that earlier. Didn't think that.
All right, Joe, thank you very much indeed. That's almost it for tonight. I said thanks very much to Mark for sorting that out for us. I want to just read out one little comment actually I saw earlier on because one of our members was trying to help a person in Holt. Steve Webb actually wrote that the antenna that you've got is a Magitenna and it's a wire antenna with a matching unit for loft spaces, no mag mount. So anyway, Steve or anybody else, if you can help that person in Holt, I'm trying to remember the name desperately. Cassie. So if you can help Cassie in Holt, even with just over the phone with some advice or anything about mounting that antenna, that would be lovely. But that's about it for NARC Live for tonight. Next week on Norfolk Amateur Radio Club, remember Sunday night we've got the GB2RS News with Mike, G4DYC. On Monday the 1st of November, the Monday Night Net at 7:30, and at 8:30 the 80-metre CW net on 3.543 megs. And next Wednesday here in a week's time we've got Phil, G4LPP. He'll be showing you the wonderful thing that you can do with homebrew linears for 6 metres, 4 metres, 2 metres and 70 centimetres. Now that of course is up the higher frequencies of things, and it's a good time to remind you that on the 18th of November this month, it's come round, the ICNERP regulations come in for antennas and transmitters over 110 megahertz. Now, what to try and help you on that final stage, on the 10th of November, which is just 8 days before that, we've got an ICNERP special again on the VHF and up, which as I said, becomes part of the regulations from just over a week from there. We've got our EMC guys, we've got Mike and Tony, we've got Steve G0KYA, and also we hope to have somebody else to help us on VHF antennas especially. But start thinking about it now. If you've got any particular queries, if you've tried to use the online calculator, for example, on Ofcom or the RSGB website and you've had troubles or struggles with it, let us know, drop us a line with your particular challenges with ICNERP and we'll try and put them to the team for them. That's on the 10th of November. But that's about it from us. We look forward to your stories and everything else and hope Tammy's voice is better next time. Well done for soldiering on tonight.
It's all right. I'm sorry about the coughing in the background.
That's all right. We'll see you again next week for another NARC Live. So from Tammy, it's good night.
Goodbye.
And from me, David G7URP, take care. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.